Every time you open your refrigerator, you probably think you're simply getting something to eat. But inside that cold box, something much more important is happening. Your refrigerator is slowing down one of the biggest threats to the food you eat every day, the rapid growth of microorganisms. Bacteria are everywhere. They can be found on food, kitchen surfaces, hands, and even in the environment around us. Some are harmless, others can cause foodborne illness, and when the conditions are right, certain bacteria can multiply surprisingly quickly. That is where refrigeration becomes one of the most important inventions in modern food safety. A refrigerator does not magically kill every dangerous bacterium. Instead, it does something different. It slows them down. Temperature has a major effect on how quickly microorganisms grow. When perishable food is kept warm for too long, many bacteria can multiply much faster. But when that same food is kept properly refrigerated, the cold environment slows their growth. In simple terms, refrigeration buys us time. Imagine a container of cooked food sitting on a kitchen counter. At first, it may look completely normal. It may smell fine. But microscopic bacteria don't need to change the appearance of food before they begin multiplying. Now place that food into a properly cold refrigerator. The environment changes. The lower temperature slows microbial growth, giving you more time to safely store the food. But there is an important warning. Cold does not mean permanent safety. Some microorganisms can survive refrigeration, and some can even grow slowly at refrigerator temperatures. That's why food still has a limited storage life. And this is also why a refrigerator should not be treated like a sterilizer. It is a growth control system. One of the most important numbers in household food safety is 40 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 4 degrees Celsius. Keeping a refrigerator at or below this temperature helps slow the growth of many harmful bacteria. But temperature isn't the only factor. Time matters too. Food that stays in warm conditions for a short period may be very different from food that has been sitting there for hours. The longer bacteria have favorable conditions, the more opportunity they have to multiply. That's why leftovers should be refrigerated promptly rather than being left on the counter for an extended period. Large amounts of hot food can also take a long time to cool if they're stored in one deep container. Dividing leftovers into smaller, shallow containers can help them cool more quickly. But even inside the refrigerator, organization matters. Raw meat, poultry, and seafood should be kept separate from foods that are ready to eat. Why? Because of something called cross-contamination. If liquid from raw food leaks onto another food, microorganisms can potentially spread. The refrigerator can slow those microorganisms down, but it cannot undo the contamination. That's why safe food handling and refrigeration have to work together. And then there is the refrigerator door. Every time you open it, warm air enters. The temperature inside can fluctuate. That's why highly perishable foods are generally better kept in the colder, more stable parts of the refrigerator rather than relying on the door shelves. The same principle applies outside your home. Before food reaches your refrigerator, it may travel through an entire refrigerated supply chain. Milk, meat, frozen foods, and other perishables can move from processing facilities to refrigerated trucks, then to stores, and finally into your kitchen. This system is known as the cold chain. The goal is to keep temperature-sensitive food cold throughout its journey, because refrigeration works best when the entire chain works together. Then there is the freezer. Freezing takes cold storage even further. At freezing temperatures, microbial growth is generally stopped or greatly limited, but freezing does not necessarily destroy every microorganism. Many can survive frozen conditions. When food eventually thaws, those microorganisms can become active again. So freezing is more like pressing pause than pressing delete. And what happens when the power goes out? The refrigerator becomes one of the most important things to leave closed. Every time the door opens, cold air escapes. Keeping it closed helps the food remain cold for longer. But if food has been held at unsafe temperatures for too long, it may no longer be safe to eat. And never rely on taste alone to decide whether questionable food is safe. Some harmful microorganisms may be present without producing an obvious smell or appearance. So the safest approach is to follow reliable storage guidelines rather than using your senses as a safety test. Ultimately, your refrigerator is not simply a machine that makes food cold. It is a tool for controlling microbial growth. It slows bacteria, it helps preserve perishable foods, and it gives us valuable extra.